Hey everyone, welcome to another Jeff the IT Guy video. Today I'm going to start a tutorial on MySQL. In one of the previous lessons, we learned how to take our Python web scraper and put that data into an SQL database. And so this is a follow-up to that. And if you want to see that video, check on the card in whichever corner it comes up into, and you can actually follow along with that video as well. And there's also another video that is the start of our Python web scraper if you have not seen it. Both of these videos will also be linked down below. And so we're going to be doing this on our Raspberry Pi web server that we created. I have an entire Raspberry Pi playlist that you can watch and follow along with if you're interested in this sort of content. Also, if you are interested in Raspberry Pi, learning how to program, learning MySQL, or all things tech, then go ahead and subscribe down below. And just leave me a comment as well and let me know some of the things that you would like to take a look at. And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started in our MySQL tutorial. And so first thing we're going to do is I am remoted into my Raspberry Pi web server. This is a Raspberry Pi 4. There's a link for it down below. And we're just going to go ahead and we're going to open up MySQL. And so if you don't know how or have not installed MySQL so far on your Raspberry Pi, that's easily taken care of. All you need to do is I've got a video tutorial about it as well that you can watch, or there are a ton of guides online that teach you how to do that. So first thing we got to do is we got to log into it. And so we're going to type MySQL-U, and this stands for user. And so this is Linux commands. So MySQL is telling Linux that it needs to pull up the MySQL database. And our user is root. And then you type -P, and this stands for password. And so I'm going to go ahead and enter the password to my Raspberry Pi SQL database. And so we're using MariaDB. You can also use MySQL Community. Or Postgres. There's a lot of different MySQL databases out there. And so I've actually got to tell it now that I'm logged in to use one of my databases. And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to type show databases and then a semicolon. And this is going to show me what databases are available to me. And so I've got some here. And so the next thing we're going to type is we're going to type use and then the name of the database. Okay. And then a semicolon. And so now we are using the database scraper. And this is where all of our scraped data is going into. And so if I type show, like I did earlier with the databases, but I can say show tables, this is going to tell me what tables are available. And so I've only got one table, and that is the Indeed database that I've created. All right, so here we are, we're back in this. And so now hopefully you should be able to see everything. I had to make some changes. And so the last thing I said was I said show tables, and I'm going to hit that again. That's going to show that there's only one table, which is Indeed. And so from here, we can start to run MySQL commands and see what we can do with this data. And so the basic command is going to be select star, which stands for select all, from, and then you give it the table name, which is Indeed. And so as you can see, there's only 2 columns in this database so far. We've got job and we've got company. Okay? And so if we wanted to select just the job, we would say select job from Indeed. And then now we're getting as the job. We could also do select company from Indeed. And this is going to give us just the company. Okay, so here we are. And so we can select just one of those columns. We can also do, you can select both columns if you want to. So you can say select job and then you put a comma and company if you want to select multiple columns, right, from the table. Okay, and so that's going to do the same thing as select star in this case, since we only have 2. However, if you had a database with 10 or 15, 20 columns, you can just select the columns that you want. Also, what's really neat is you can say show columns in and then the name of the database, and it's going to show us the columns that are in that database. And so it's also going to give the type, if it allows nulls, if it has a primary or a foreign key, what the default value is, and if there's any extra information, right? And so when we start talking about keys, you have what's called a primary and a foreign key. And a primary key is the key that's used to relate two tables together inside of a database. And that's going to be the main or the primary key that connects those two tables, not databases. And so MySQL is a relational database. And what that means is the tables that are inside the database are related to each other based upon relationships, such as primary keys and foreign keys. And a foreign key is a key or a column, etc., that relates to another table, but it's not the primary key. And so if this had a primary key in it, I'd show you how to do that, then it would have a primary key and it would tell what that is. And so we can say show columns in Indeed. All right, so the next thing that we're going to look at then, since we've kind of got like our selects done, these are basic selects. You know, we've learned how to show the columns, show the databases, show the tables. The next thing we want to do is we want to create, right? We want to create a table. Or you can create a database as well. And so if I was to say create table, and I give it a name, and so I can call it, you know, tutorial, right? And then I'm gonna, so next thing I need to do is I need to put in parentheses, if I can spell it right, put in parentheses, and then I'm gonna give it the name of the columns. And so we could have first name, and then you gotta give it the data type, and there's multiple data types out there. And we'll say this one is what is a varchar. And what this stands for is it's a variable character. So it can be letters or it can be numbers. And we'll say it has a length of 50. Okay. And you put a comma. We'll say last name. And we'll give it a varchar of 50. And we'll also, so we can say first name, last name. We'll say DOB or date of birth. And for this one, we'll give it a date. Time, actually. Well, no, we'll just do date. You can do date times as well, which will give you down to the minutes, hours, and seconds. So we'll do a date. And this one doesn't take in where I put the 50 like a varchar, because a date's just a date, right? So we've got first name, last name, DOB or date of birth. You could even put city, right? And we'll say it's a varchar of 100, because there's some pretty long city names out there. You could also say, so you've got city, you could put state and give it a varchar of, say, 75. And you're going to close it up with your parentheses and do a semicolon. And so there, we've created our table. And so this, if we look now, if I say select or show, not select, show columns in our table, which we created was tutorial, we will see that we have our columns, which is first name, last name, date of birth, city, and state. And we've got the types, and if they're null, if they allow nulls, and if there's any keys, whether it's primary or foreign, what the default would be, and if there's any extra. And so now we have created our table that we can work in. And so if you want to create a database, the only thing you do is say create database, and you give it its name. So if we want to create the tutorial database, you would just say this, create database tutorial, and it'll go ahead and create that for you. So now that we've created our database, now we can do some inserts. And so an insert is when you insert data into a database, whether that is using what's called a CRUD tool, which stands for create, replace, update, delete, or you just insert it using some code, like with what we do in our tutorial with our Indeed web scraper. We insert that data into the database. And we're back. We are back. Sorry, my wife called and I had to take it. You're married, you know what I mean. So anyway, we're back. We're gonna do some inserts into our table tutorial. And so to do that, we're gonna say insert into the table name, which is tutorial, right? And then we've got our columns, so you put the columns that you want to insert into. So we've got you know, like first name, okay? Then you got last name, DOB, city, and state. Put that inside of parentheses, then you say values, then another parentheses, and then you do single quotes. And so we're gonna say first name, we'll put it like Bobby, and we can do last name, we'll say Ricky or something. For the date of birth, we will put it as 01/01/1974. For the city, we'll say Talladega. And then for the state, we'll say, I think Talladega's in North Carolina. I could be wrong. We'll close it like this. Oh, incorrect date time. So it wants an entire, it wants it as a date time because I changed it. So we'll say 000000. Enter. Sometimes it wants it a certain way. You just got to figure it out. It may want it like this. Sometimes SQL can be tricky. Sometimes it wants like the year first. There we go. So for in this instance, it wanted the year first. Sometimes it wants year, sometimes it'll do month, sometimes it'll do day. You just have to kind of try around with it. MySQL, you can do it anyway, but apparently with MariaDB, you have to do it with the year first. And so if I go into select star here, which is select all, from tutorial, then we will see the data that I put in. And so we've got first name of Bobby, last name of Ricky. His date of birth is 1974/11, and there's no time with it. He's from Talladega, North Carolina. And so we can actually go through and we can change this up. And so, you know, we could do like Cal Rogers, and you know, you can say like 3/31 about 1976, and we'll say he is from Raleigh. Okay, and so now if we say select all from our tutorial table, we'll see that we have 2 rows. And so from here, we can actually do some cool things. So we can say select first name, and then you can actually, so we'll say first name, last name from tutorial. And we're going to introduce where clauses, where the city is equal to Talladega. Close it up. And we can see that we get the first name and the last name from the database, from our table, from where the city is equal to Talladega. You could also say, you could do it with something else. So you could say, we don't have any separate states, or we could do states, but you could say select first name, last name, where, you know, last name is equal to Rogers. Okay. And then we'll get Cal Rogers. And then you could change it up. You could do first name, you could do date of birth. So that's how you select the first name and the last name, or select all of it. But let's say we wanted to select first name as, and then we'll just say, we can format it a little bit. So we'll say first name and last name as last name from tutorial, and we'll say where the state is North Carolina. There we go. So it wanted our as in parentheses in single quotes. And so as you can see there, I went in and added in some single quotes around the as value. So as first name, as last name from tutorial. And it gives us both of these things from where the state is equal to North Carolina. Okay, and so that's how you do like some basic where clauses. You can do a lot of different things with where clauses. So if we were to look at this, you could even do, so from where state is North Carolina, or you can say where state you can is like, and then you can just put in percentage signs, and you can say north. Like that. And it's going to give us anything that's like north. So if we was to change it to city like that, we're not going to get anything because there's nothing there. But we could change it and we could say where the city is. We could just say TAL, T-A-L. Right. And so what these percentage signs is, when you do like, it looks for the characters T-A-L in a row, and then you've got the percentage signs on each end. And what that says is it doesn't matter what comes before it and what comes after it. Anything can come before and after it, but it's looking for TAL specifically with anything around it. And so that's how you use a like clause. So you can also do, you can do order by. So like ascending is ASC. Sometimes they want it as. Say you wanted to group by state. Isn't really gonna do anything. So, and so it grouped everything by state and it put it into one row, which isn't the best. You don't want to do that unless you have a lot of different things that. So it actually wants ascending put by, and so we could actually say order by here. That. And so now it's going to order by ascending. If you put it in single quotes, you can even do descending, which is DESC. And so they'll put it in descending. But for this, it's actually the same. So let's move on to the dates. So let's go back. Yeah. So we'll say from tutorial where date of birth, and you can actually do like is greater than or equal to, and then we'll say it wants the year first, so we'll say 1970-01-01 like this, and it'll give us everything that's greater than 1970. And so let's actually just select all and see what dates I put in. So if we do select all from tutorial, we'll see that I put in 1974 and 1976. So let's say I wanted everything that was greater than 1975. Do it like that, and we'll see that we just get Cal Rogers. Or you could change it up. Instead of greater than, you could do less than. So date of birth is less than 1975. And we're just going to get Bobby Ricky. You can also do date of birth. You can do just straight equals if you wanted to look for anything that was straight equal. So we can say where date of birth is, you can do betweens as well. So you can say where date of birth is between single quotes, and we'll say 1974-01-01 and 1975-12-31, and we'll see that we just get Ricky Bobby. And so what that does is that says that we're only looking for a date of birth between the January 1st, 1975 or 1974 and December 31st, 1975. And so that's how you would do dates on there and do a between. You can also do with your where clauses, you can do and ors. So you can say where state is equal to, we'll say city. So we'll say where city is equal to Talladega, and we'll say date of birth is less than or equal to, we'll say 1970, like that. And we're not going to get anything, which is fine because that's how it was done. But if we was to say, okay, well, we want it less than 1977, we're going to get Bobby Ricky. But if we were to say where the city is equal to Raleigh, like that, because it says where the city is equal to Raleigh and the date of birth is less than 1977, we're only going to get Cal Rogers because he is from the city of Raleigh. However, if we change this and to or, then we're going to get both of them. And so what that's saying is where the city is equal to Raleigh or their date of birth is less than or equal to 1977. And so this has been my tutorial of beginning MySQL. Once again, if you haven't watched the other videos of how to install MySQL, which is MariaDB, for example, on this one, it's actually not MySQL, but MariaDB on your Raspberry Pi 4, it'll be linked in the description. Also, if you want to look at the other ones, the playlist will be linked in the description as well as the Raspberry Pi itself, in case you wanted to go by it and follow along. Also, coming up, we're going to do maybe a little bit more advanced stuff. So we'll do some more advanced MySQL. We're going to look at PHP. We're going to do some more advanced Python with our web server here. And so if you were interested in that stuff and you haven't already, please subscribe, leave a like if you like the video, and leave a comment and let me know what you think. Do you enjoy these tutorials? Are they helpful? Are you learning? And so that's all from me. You all have a great day.